Hello, everyone, for the After Chat. This is Bill After. We're in Allentown. The After Chat. Not the After. A lot of people think it's like the After Chat.
Yeah, it sounded like
Dusty used to put an N in my name. He used to say it's the After Chat, if you will.
The After Chat.
Yeah, the After Chat.
That sounds like one word, though. Why don't you call it the chatting with After or something like that?
It just doesn't have the ring of.
After Chat sounds like one word.
Well, it is one word. .com.
Afterchat.com?
Yeah, well, I'm going to register that URL today.
Okay, those are
you just gave me an answer.
Yeah,
you just gave me an answer. So, Disco Inferno, Glen. This is the people know your real name now.
Yeah, of course. And Glen Gilbertti.
Yeah.
You know the funny? I've got a funny story about that.
Would you mind sharing that with the After Chatters?
Absolutely. When I first started wrestling, there was a group called North Georgia Championship Wrestling. That's where I trained, and I was going to start wrestling. Remember Sammy Kent?
I was there.
Well, Sammy Kent couldn't read and write very well, right? So when my debut match for my first ever wrestling match, it had on the thing that was just going to use my real name, Glen Gilbertti. Well, he couldn't read very well, so he said Glen Gilbertti's going to be there, and so everybody started calling me Glen Gilbertti because he said it on TV and just mispronounced my name.
Wow!
And so everybody then the sheet started putting in Meltzer's. I was Glen Gilbertti. I was like, all right, what I'm Glen Gilbertti now. So.
Well, that's what Dusty went on TV one time after I gave him an award, and he said, "My buddy Willie Apner." So for years, oh, Mr. Apner,
Yeah, right.
Willie Apner. It was the same thing. It was the same thing. So I've always wanted to know, how did the Disco Inferno thing happen? Because they gave it, whoever came up with that gave it to the right person. Because
me and Raven corroborated on it.
Is that right?
We studied. We were doing we got together and tried to come up with a gimmick. And he had showed me a tape of this guy named Dr. Johnny Holiday. That wrestled in Calgary for a brief time.
Yeah.
He did like a kind of a disco gimmick, but all the guy did was just put on a white jacket. That's all he did. That was the whole gimmick. He just had the white jacket on.
Right,
So he did.
right.
So I just extrapolated that.
Watch your language.
Studied the good word for Italian, right? So I studied like the honky tonk man, because it was a similar how he would do his gimmick and something.
Sure.
And just incorporated the disco character into that type of flamboyance, like the dancing and stuff and everything. So
you two kind of brought in that character.
He showed me that. It was his. If I would have never seen that, I would never would have thought of that.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Were you a big fan of Saturday Night Fever?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I like disco music.
Yeah.
Who doesn't really?
Oh, I do. I used to go. I used to go pick up dates at discos. Oh yeah. I was.
Did you go to Studio 54?
Actually, I did.
Did you really?
I did. Actually, Studio 54 was one of the places I hung out at regularly.
Did any of the wrestlers go there?
Well, Paul Heyman had quite a history.
Right.
There.
Yeah, Studio 54.
I never saw.
When he was young.
But
none of
No, I never saw wrestlers there.
Spiros Arion was never there. Anything
Fred Blassie used to call him Spiros Arion. Yeah. But no, I never saw the one person, and this is going to really go back into the past. Mm-hmm. You can't go future.
Right.
But one of the people that I idolized when I was a little kid, there was a singer named Eddie Fisher. Mm-hmm. His daughter, Carrie Fisher,
became Princess Leia.
And I always wanted to meet him, and I went to Studio 54 with a date one night, and he was there.
Right.
And I introduced him, and we actually became friends, and I got to talk to him on the phone a million times and all that.
What a completely random sidebar this interview is turning
but
into.
I love those. I love those.
This is going to be the disco for the Eddie Fisher interview. Where you tell the Eddie Fisher story.
So and if you go to my Facebook page, Bill After, there's albums on that page, and there's a picture of Eddie Fisher and I. I walked in that night with a cowboy hat, a leather cowboy hat, and he loved it so much I gave it to him.
Do you have any pictures of that?
It's on my Facebook page.
Of you in the leather cowboy hat?
Yes, of me in the dressing room in Atlantic City 2 weeks later, bringing it to him after a show and giving it to him. Yes, it's on my Facebook page. So now getting back to Disco Inferno. So had that gimmick not happened to you, what was the other side of
I was typical cheesy wrestling indie gimmick, the Brooklyn Stud.
Yeah, the Brooklyn Stud. I didn't know that.
The Brooklyn Stud, Glen Gilbertti. That was my gimmick.
I didn't know that.
That was my gimmick before I started doing disco regularly.
So When you became Disco, all the years that you were Disco, and I followed you, I was always backstage and taking pictures of you and all that. What was Disco Inferno's greatest moment?
I'll be very honest with you. You know what I tell to this day? You know what I tell people my crowning achievement in professional wrestling is? When I was voted Pro Wrestling Illustrated's top 50 sexiest wrestlers.
Oh, yes. I was with the
literally
company
tell
at
people
that point.
That is my crowning achievement in professional wrestling. Because if you look at all the wrestling over the years, the history and everything, I was voted the top 50 sexiest wrestlers.
Yes, we did. I don't remember who we made number one.
I always tell people I was number 3. I always lie.
I will go. Since I was one of the editors back then, I'll corroborate that for you.
Okay,
he was number 3. Who was number 1? I don't even remember.
Oh God, I forgot. It had to be Shawn Michaels.
It probably was. Yeah.
Shawn Michaels. Yeah.
Would that have been your gimmick? The sexy boy
sexy
thing?
Boy.
Could you pull that?
I could have pulled that off.
Yeah.
I think I could.
I'll bet you could
not
have.
the work, but I could have pulled off the gimmick.
So, when did Disco Inferno actually leave the business?
I've never left
the character.
The character.
When did he
TV.
stop? Yeah.
I still do shows, but like here's the thing about professional wrestling. This is what I always tell people. People say, I'm retiring. I'm retiring. Like, if you continue to get paid to perform in professional wrestling, whatever it is, you'll never retire. Because there's no reason to. It's just like, if they're going to pay me to do this, I'll do this until I do this till I die.
Some people will do it without getting paid because it's a brotherhood and a family that that exists.
So I'm never retiring. I just don't do regular. I'm not a weekly performer on TV right now. If you want to gauge at that, but I quit doing that in probably 2008ish.
Yeah.
2007, 2008, probably I just quit performing on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So what? Tell everybody now what you're doing these days.
I work at a club in Las Vegas, Sapphire Gentlemen's Club. It's the largest one in the world.
Which one is it?
Sapphire.
Okay.
So I work there.
I think I was there years ago.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So, I hire the girls. That's my job, and it's a good job. And then I get the flexibility to wrestle when I want to. They let me go out of town.
Not with the girls.
No, not at all. But I also train. I've been training in a while, but I'm still open when my schedule changes. I train at Future Stars of Wrestling in Vegas. I train some of the wrestlers. Yeah, I used to teach a class. My class was called the punching kicking class. I just teach people how to punch and kick.
Wow, which was a lot of wrestling back in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, and then nobody really does it anymore.
Now you're also hooked up with Vince Russo, aren't you?
Yeah, we do that. I do the podcast with Russo.
Yeah.
It's called Lions, Tigers, Bears, and Disco, and I also do a podcast with Conan.
Yes,
so
I
Keep It
know.
100 with Conan.
Right.
That's like I call him a professional VIP podcast guest.
That's great. See, I call them. I always tell people when I do those shows that I'm now, instead of the radio waves, I'm on the pod waves.
The pod waves, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So
I'll tell you this though. I will say this: that if you look at the, I'm sure you used to listen to this show too, but
yes.
If you look at all the podcasts today, and the first original podcast, even though it wasn't a podcast, but WCW Live. Kind of set
I remember
the benchmark
that.
for what these podcasts have become.
Wow.
That was, I still to this day say those shows, those WCW Live shows, are by far better than any podcast.
That was you, Bob Ryder,
Jeremy and Ryder,
yeah.
Boris and Ryder. I would be a regular. Conan was a regular. Mark Madden was a regular.
Yeah.
Stuff. We did so many funny things on that show. It was great. We were doing like nobody's really listening to it, right? We were literally burying our own company.
I know. Do you know that
nobody was listening to the show? Like, if you heard that back then, like you'd be saying, "How these guys not get fired?" So
I was actually going to be. Bob Ryder had called me if I wanted to be a part of that, and then the company went out of business. It was great timing.
But those shows were hysterical. We did so many funny things.
Vince Russo, in my opinion, gets a very unfair break.
He does.
I've always liked the guy. He's very controversial.
I call it. You know what I call it? The fake news wrestling media has done a number on him over the years.
That's
what I like. Because it's just anybody that knows Vince has worked with them. Knows that's just like the heat he gets is a narrative.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. But people always say, what do you think of Vince Russo? I have been friends with Vince since he was the editor of the WWF magazine.
Right, because you guys were kind of like not competing, but you guys were doing both the kayfabe magazine. So it's like, so I'm sure you guys.
No, what we did, it was all real.
Yeah.
We made up the truth. We made up the truth.
Right, yeah.
So where can people find you on social media?
At The Real Disco on Twitter and at Disco Master Gigi on Instagram and Snapchat.
Okay, so Disco
Don't
Inferno.
hit me up on Facebook. I get enough Facebook friends, and not. It's my Facebook friend request is filled up with wrestling fans. If I don't know you or haven't met you, you're not getting on my Facebook. Right?
Now wait a minute. I like to do this with all the guys here. Who was your toughest opponent in WCW?
Toughest opponent or favorite opponent? What do you mean?
Toughest.
Toughest was Eddie Guerrero.
Okay, so
also the best guy I've ever been in the ring with.
Oh, he was absolutely.
He was of all the people I've been in the ring with. I've been with them all. Okay, there's two things. Eddie Guerrero by far was head and shoulders the most talented performer I've been in the ring with.
Amazing.
But the most amazing experience I ever had was wrestling against Ric Flair.
Okay. You just said it. All right. Okay. So tonight, Allentown, Pennsylvania, the rematch. Ric Flair defeated you several months ago. Tonight is the rematch. Ric Flair is watching this.
Okay.
Disco Inferno, how are you going to beat Ric Flair?
Well, Space Mountain is supposed to be like, you're supposed to ride it all night long.
Talk to him.
But Flair, but Nature Boy, you're too old to do this now. A young buck like me is ready to get my piece of the pie, and I'm ready to eat. And that's what I'm going to do. And you got lucky last time, but this time you're going down.
Can you out-woo him?
Woo!
It's pretty damn good.
That's pretty generic.
For Disco Inferno, this is Bill Apter. We point out to the camera. We'll see you at the matches.
Always a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.